All right, fantastic. Sonik Gemz podcast. We are in the building today. I wanted to do a special edition of the podcast with a person that I had the privilege of going to high school with. A very smart brother, community advocate who is continuously on the front lines. His name is Anthony Beckford, who is actually on the front lines as we speak. So, Anthony, how are you, my brother?
I'm good, surviving. Trying to live, but I'm just surviving right now.
Exactly. I totally feel you. So I wanted to talk with you specifically because I know your work. I know you're a community advocate. I know how you fight for your people, from in so many different facets, even down to rent strikes and making sure that people have affordable housing within our area, in the area that we both grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn. So I just wanted to get your take on everything that's going on as far as with Ahmaud Arbery and now with George Floyd, with pretty much the police officer kneeling on his neck for 9 minutes while a grown man is pretty much dying and screaming for his mother who passed away 2 years ago. What are your thoughts on this? And you being on the front line right now, what are you seeing and how are people reacting to it outside of what we're seeing on television and in social media?
Well, you gotta look at it as the fact of, this is nothing new. It's just been modified. This is modern day lynching. They're doing it to us as black people day and night, 24/7. Every 28 hours, a black man, woman, or child is murdered by the police in this country.
Yeah.
A lot of the officers who say that they don't have nothing to do with it, these are the same officers who will stand there and they'll allow their colleagues and stuff like that to get away with these horrendous crimes against our people.
Right.
And that right there makes them complicit to the crime. They're just as guilty as those who basically enacted the crime themselves. And right now, it's all one same. When it comes to housing, when it comes to gentrification, it's all war against our people in our communities. And basically right now we're saying enough is enough. A lot of people may say, well, y'all been chanting for a while, y'all been marching for a while, for a lot of years. When's it going to change? It's going to change when people get the courage to actually push forward and put this system to the test and start holding everybody accountable, from the police officers to the commanding officers, also the mayor and the city council members and the governor as well too.
Absolutely. I 1000% agree with you, Anthony. 1000% agree. Now, especially with holding the police officers and, the commissioners and police chief, holding them accountable for what's happening. Why are they not, as a unit? I mean, we already know, coming up in Brooklyn, you kind of grow up to untrust police. You don't have any trust for police officers in general. So what can we do?
Yeah.
What can the police officer do, for instance, to ratify the situation? I mean, there's nothing you can do. It's a loss of life, so that's that. But I don't even mean in Minnesota, but just in general. How can the police and the community come together so that these kind of things don't happen? What are your thoughts?
Well, the issue is, like, we have to look at the fact of what the police department was created for, in this country. It wasn't just something that just came about in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, and they say, hey, let's create this force that will basically police the people. This is something that we've been underneath for a while now. It was this system came over from Europe and stuff like that, and they utilized most of these people who were soldiers, who were exiles and stuff when they came over to colonize our country. Well, this country here, which is a stolen land, they came over and basically this is what they enacted. When they started stealing bodies, from black bodies from Africa and other countries and stuff like that, they basically then started making that into their slave patrol. This police system now is basically a modern day slave patrol.
Right.
Okay. And so we as a people, we have to stop relying on the people who are loyal to the system to try to make a change to the system. Because the system is not broken. It was created this way.
Right.
So we have to dismantle. Appreciate you, bro. We have to dismantle. The foundations of the ideology of white supremacy. And I say the ideology because it's nothing supreme.
Yeah.
But it's the ideology of white supremacy. But then also we have to now go after those who are agents of white supremacy, which are our own people who feel that oh, let me get a seat at the table and I'm good. But you're good, but your people are still being brutalized. Your people are still being murdered by these lawless people in a badge. You know, and I tell a lot of officers, if you're not holding your partner accountable, you're just as guilty as your partner. If you
Absolutely.
don't like the pressure that's being put on you because of the injustice that y'all committed upon us, quit your job, get another job.
Right.
You're not even getting paid that much anyway. So why you out here enacting that violence? I had to tell some officers yesterday, you know, the people who basically, electricians in the precincts, most of them make 20, 30,000 more than these officers do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm like, if you don't like what's going on, quit your job and get out of the force. 'Cause I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, they try to recruit me, and I took my written test. I was like, let me see how far I can give this. Took the written test. They sent me papers and it said 6-7. I was like, wait, 6-7 precinct? That's in my community.
Yeah.
I didn't even take the rest of my eval yet, and they already were stationing me in my community. I said, nah, I already see what this is. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Because I was one of those who at first was saying, you know what, let me get in to change the system, but then you can't change something really that is broken. I mean, that is not broken, but is created the way it is. You basically have to dismantle the foundations of the ideology of white supremacy. Dismantle the foundations of the slave patrol, and then build up community policing, which is the people policing themselves, which is the community building back up and empower themselves, instead of you having people like overseers basically literally lynching you modern day, whether it's through economically or physically.
Absolutely. I concur 1,000,000% with you. Now, usually when these situations happen, I mean, it's been happening for centuries. This is nothing new, as you stated earlier. At this stage, in this time in 2020, right now, even amongst COVID and everything that's happening in New York City and this worldwide, do we believe that marching is still and protesting is still going to help, or should we be taking more extreme measures at this point? As we saw in Minnesota, they started burning, and we know that what they respect more than anything is the loss of property and money. It always comes down to a financial gain. So do we think that that's probably the best route, to scream out that this is no longer something that we're going to accept, or do you think that at this time let's still march, let's still peacefully protest, and kind of see where that will take us? Do you think that's still a viable way of doing things?
Let's do it all. Let's do it all.
Yeah.
There's multiple levels to this movement. Look at the fact of Martin had one part of the movement, Malcolm had another part of the movement.
Right.
Coretta Scott King was basically facilitating the two movements to come together, and that's
Yeah.
when they murdered them both.
Right.
They're
Absolutely.
afraid. They're afraid of our movements coming together as one and moving forward against them. So you're gonna need people who protest, who march, who chant. But the same way, you're gonna need people who disrupt as well too. Simple as
Absolutely.
that.
I agree. I agree
You know,
100%.
we need it. But let's not mistaken the fact of that there are co-opters who are white people who are not our white allies. They're just other white people who have an agenda of their own, who will come and they'll disrupt the flow of our message by committing, damage and destruction to businesses. And it's not capitalist businesses. It is basically small businesses that they basically destroy. And that's not our messaging.
Right.
Because when you look at a black-led march, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you compare it to marches that have been co-opted by white people, you have to look at the fact of the difference between the messaging and how we act.
Right.
Like even yesterday, we literally had to tell our white allies, take your behinds to the back. You do not lead us.
Right.
We lead ourselves, and we march, we chant, we shut things down, and we're gonna continue doing that. And at the same time, there's other ways to do it. We do it economically by hitting them where the money hits the pockets.
Mm-hmm.
But then also you also hit them legislatively. You change the laws of the land. That means more of us who are boots on the ground in the movement has to get to these positions and change it around. We can't have demands without our own people being in position to answer those demands for us.
I agree. I agree. Again, I agree with everything that you're doing and everything that you're saying, Anthony. I believe that we have to mobilize, we have to centralize, I think that the view how we view these kind of atrocities and how it happens, even the view of it has to change. You know, the spread of what happened with George Floyd and the way that social media kind of took it, and now it exploded. Even Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, these
Yeah,
gentlemen pretty much got away with murder until it hit social media, until it
yeah,
became an outrage about it, and you know, people weren't even aware that, you know, that this even happened
yeah.
in New York City right now. What are you seeing right now on the front line? How are the people, just as far as reacting to this as you're seeing? Is it? I saw everything that happened at the Barclays, and I say, is that where you are
Yeah,
right now?
yeah, we back at the Barclays. You know, yesterday we took over Flatbush.
Nice,
You
nice.
know, but the thing is like this is where you know we're different. We're like who's organizing our different movements because you got to look at the fact of that out here in the Barclays mostly is going to be you know white organizers, or it's going to be black organizers that's working along with white organizers. And Flatbush and East Flatbush, you already know, it's our people that's leading that
Yeah.
and stuff. And our numbers are still always strong. And right now, we got about like 5,000 to 6,000 in this march here. There's another one taking place in another part of Brooklyn that has another 4,000 or 5,000. Then we got we got one at Times Square just reached Times Square that has 10,000. You
Mm.
know, and that's just only 3 locations. That's not the rest of the boroughs that are involved in this. That's not the rest of the states that go through. Matter of fact, it has reached as far as Canada and Europe.
Mm.
You know, everybody now is saying enough is enough. They're sick and tired of this, and it's about time that we put action out there to our words.
Absolutely. I agree 1,000%. You think that people are getting the message, Anthony? Oh, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, for all those watching, is giving you a great view of what's going on in Brooklyn, New York right now, right outside of the Barclays Center. So he's showing you that everyone that's out there on the front lines right now, people are peacefully protesting. Nothing is really happening as far as violence. We know a lot of the times when people protest, they do have a lot of infiltrators that come in and kind of cause ruckus to make it, to disrupt what's actually happening and what's going on.
And
Uh,
and
Anthony,
also, let
yes.
me make another thing very clear because like yesterday literally was a echo of war in our communities, especially we were at Bedford and Lynn no Bedford and Church yesterday,
Hmm.
and they literally called out every single police force. They even called out counterterrorism against us.
Mm,
None of the protesters, anything they're saying about protesters being violent, one, there's no such thing as violence to an inanimate object. There's no feelings.
right.
It's going to get replaced, but the black life that's taken is not going to get replaced. But at the same time, too, you have to look at the fact of the police are always instigating and antagonizing the people.
Yeah.
And you push against people who have been oppressed, beaten, kidnapped, raped,
Hmm.
murdered,
Yep.
stolen. They're going to push back because they're
Absolutely.
sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Absolutely. Again, at this stage, and it being at this stage of life in 2020, with everything that's happening right now, I want you, Anthony, if you can give my viewers a bit of a background on your history. I didn't start off there first, but I want you to let them know why you're on the front line, how long you've been doing what you're doing, and what made you decide to come in and be a community advocate and work for your community and your people specifically.
Well, first and foremost, I got to give the fact that, I'm thankful for my mother who taught me about Black history, as I was growing up, from a baby till I was able to read. My books reflected Black history, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, you know, about different revolutions, for me to at least have along with the rest of the knowledge that was being taught to me, so that way nobody could lie to me about my history.
Facts.
My my initial waking moment though was in third grade. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but it showed us the movie Roots, and
Wow.
I was pissed. I was what? I was like, no, man, it's not. We're not having that. But then when I became inactive, when I started doing stuff was the age of 12. When I started fighting against the racism within the school system, when they were trying to further segregate our school systems and take away funding. I'm not that old. I'm 38. So that tells you when I was 12 years old, You know, so that was even that long ago that this was still going on.
Right.
You know, and it's still going on now with the school to prison pipeline. You know, but then I started getting into different things. You know, I joined the music industry. That I found out that I kept on advocating for black artists. You know, and pulling them out of the corrupt contracts. You know, with a lot of these racist industry labels and so forth like that. You know, I then got to meet more mentors from the Black Panther movement. You know, from the Move movement. You know, a lot of people who people thought died off but were still around and so forth like that. And you know, I realized that no matter what I was doing, I kept on moving back to advocacy. Even in the Marine Corps, I was speaking out against this racism that we had in there. You know, and I was like, you know what? This is who I am, and let me continue it, do what I want to do on the side, but also continue advocating for the people. But then when I fully just dropped everything and just turned to being a community advocate, community leader, was like a good, I say 6-8 years ago. I was like, let me just fully, you know, dive in and put myself fully into this. And since then, taking off. You know, I'm the president and co-founder of Black Lives Matter Brooklyn. I'm the president of the Brooklyn chapter of Cop Watch Patrol Unit. You know, I jumped into politics as well too, for as a city council candidate, and everything was the empowerment of our black people, especially our black youth, the resources and services that we need. You know, and fighting tooth and nail. No matter how many times I've been a victim of police brutality, I didn't let it stop me. I kept on putting my life on the line for our people, and I'll continue doing that.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen, as you
Yeah,
hear.
oh yeah, but definitely shout out to everybody at Midwood High School, because I
Yeah.
remember when we had BHA and also like that, and then we had our Black Panther moment.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Man, you just brought up an ill memory. Oh, you took me back, bro. You took me
Yeah, we
back.
shut that school down, boy.
Oh man, that is so true. That is so true. Man, I totally forgot about that. That
But
is
that's the thing. We
unbelievable.
all had it, but it's about how we use it.
Right.
How do we use our voice? We use it through music. We do it through chanting, through organizing,
Yeah,
through radio, podcasts, through television. Like, we utilize our voices in multiple ways, and we have to make sure that our voices are never silenced. And when I look back at a lot of us who graduated in our class, literally, we all have been doing this.
right.
It's just the fact that we just got to stay consistent and never allow anybody to deter us, from our messaging and our movement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned something earlier when you said allies.
Yeah,
Do we know who our allies are, Anthony? Do you believe that we know who our allies really are? And
it's
and,
tricky.
right, and it's especially like white allies. What
Yeah,
can, as a white person who says that they align with what's going on, they align with the movement, they
yeah,
believe that this is an atrocity and that is
yeah.
happening. It's happening to black men specifically. Well, not specifically. It's happening to black people way too often. What can they do, and how can they show us that they are actually allies?
Well, I have this litmus test, right? I tell people the way you know who your ally is, you test their privilege.
Mm,
If they're willing to protect their privilege over your black body, that is not an ally.
facts.
If they're willing to stand aside and let you get brutalized, but not put their life on the line to protect you, they're not an ally. Because at the end of the day, we may get charged the same by the PD, but we're not gonna get sentenced the same.
Absolutely.
Well, I may take 5 years for jumping on the car. You may just only get community service.
Right.
So the ally, like I had this one guy, Justin Cohen, who's actually running for assembly out here, and he told me on a meeting that I had about, I have this whole series called Living While Black, and he told me on it, he's like, he's willing to burn his privilege as much as possible in order to make sure that he amplifies our message and make things clear to people and teach other white people what needs to be done and what they cannot do.
Absolutely.
And I like that. That's a true ally. And he raps heavy. He got arrested last night for us too. So
Nice.
shout out to Justin for that. You know, you know. But the way also, if you're a black organizer, and I proved this yesterday, the way to know people are your white allies. When I called out white allies to the front. And there's a reason. Because European warfare, they have the same tactics. Every time they want to catch you in the front and catch you on the flank. When I call white allies to the front, that means that they have to come in front of the black bodies when the police are about to brutalize us, and they have to lock themselves together and stop any brutality against us and so forth. The ones who did not do that, those are not allies. Those are the ones who are worried about their privilege. I don't care how much they hashtag Black Lives Matter. I don't care how much they hashtag, the black body who's been murdered. If they're not willing to act on the belief that our lives matter, that is not an ally.
I agree.
And a lot of these co-opters, as they've been finding out, are actually members of white supremacist groups. So the right wingers are coming in with the agenda, yes, of there's some people who are against capitalism, because that's a classism thing. Us as black people, we face classism, and we also face racism.
Yes.
But there are those who have been coming out, and their agenda mainly has been, let's enact foolishness to put the lives of black people at risk. That's the agenda. So yesterday we caught a few of them. We push them out. We strongly let them know,
right.
that they are not welcome in our spaces.
Absolutely.
And then and then a lot of our own black people too are a threat to us. They are the Sambos. They are the servants of the white supremacists. They are the ones who will go out there and be agents for them just to entrap us, just to, they'll brutalize us themselves. Like people say, well, we need more black cops. I'm sorry, black cops whooping your ass too.
Yeah.
Black cops shooting you too. Matter of fact, sometimes they'll be the first ones to light you up just to prove something. Because it's a gang mentality in the NYPD, and we're gonna make sure we. Matter of fact, this is the only gang that rocks the color blue and doesn't get arrested.
Right. Absolutely. Oh man.
So since they tell us that we need to clean up the gang activity in our communities, we're gonna start with the NYPD.
I agree.
We're gonna defund them. We're gonna make sure that they have no more funds. We're gonna make sure we take away through legislation the $5.8 billion budget that they get per year, the $1 billion budget that they have coming up for this fiscal term. We're gonna take all of that. We're gonna erase that, bring it down to zero, and use that money and put that into the organizations of the community, put that into the services for the community, the resources for the community, and for the youth. We're gonna put that towards the summer youth employment programs. Put that back in to open up the trade schools, to be able to fund the education system the way it needs to be, so that way our kids can learn coding and all the rest of this advanced what's the word? Advanced
technology
subjects.
Right.
The word escaped me. But to be able to gain access to these things, because it does come with funding. That's why we stress so much about people completing their census, because some of that funding comes in with that as well too. But it's not enough. So now we need to now, because the mayor talking about cutting funding from things that we need. Now we're going to need to cut funding from them.
Absolutely. Do you believe that voting will help this situation? Now, I know that most people don't know, and specifically like in our areas, they don't even know who the police chief is. They have no idea who it is. They have no idea who their council people are, the people that are advocating for them as you are. They're not as versed. I mean, they can tell you a Jay-Z verse off the top of their head, but being able to tell you who who the DA is in their area, who makes the decision how long you're going to be in jail, they have no idea who these people are, which is which is a fact of lack of education. So do you think that voting will help, that we need to get people to the polls, or do we think that we have to take some other measures, or do we need people to go out there and start doing?
Yeah, before we take them to the polls, we have to civically engage them and educate them. We have to teach them why they need to go to the polls. We need to teach them who the DA is, who the council member is, who the public advocate is, who the mayor is. A lot of people don't even know who the damn mayor is. Right. Like it's crazy, Right. The fact that they have a state assembly person in the state senate. We got to teach them these things here. We have to teach them, the process of the judicial system as well too. Because not only do we need You know, because everybody wants to turn out for a president.
Yeah.
Screw that. You know, don't only turn out for the president. Turn out for the congressional votes. Turn out for the U.S. Senate votes. Turn out to vote for your state senator, your state assembly person, your council person. A lot of people don't understand that even though something's passed federally, a lot of times we could block it locally. And your council member is the closest thing locally that will represent you. And if your council member is not a representation of your community, then that's a negative on their part because they can't and that, they don't care about your needs. They're gonna worry about their needs and their privilege. But then we got some of our own who who are brought in by outside entities who have no interest in our communities, and
Mm-hmm.
they are, like I said, they're still the agents of the ideology of white supremacy, and they'll get in and represent us, and then lie to us, and then twist it around while they're getting money from the same entities like the NYPD that are murdering us.
Right.
You know, and so not only do we civically educate them, we also have to show them how to follow the money so they know who is actually being controlled by what. You
Right.
know, if you're getting money from the police unions, guess what? You're beholden to the police unions.
Yeah.
If you get money
100%.
from the corporations, guess what? You're going to try to tear down every small business you can get to bring in more corporations. But when you take money from when your campaign funds is from the people, that's who you answer to because those are the people who you entrusted and who basically invested in you becoming the representation for them. You know, and vote and trust me, voting does help. We just gotta vote for the right people. We can no longer settle for just anybody. We can't do this lesser of two evil things. It doesn't work for us.
No.
Evil is evil. You know,
Absolutely.
one may shoot you, the other one may stab you.
Right.
It's like choose your death. You know,
Right.
I choose to live.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anthony, what do you think we can do now? And I mean that when this is over and everything slows down and we're slowly getting back to normal and
uh,
George Floyd and countless others, now it becomes history. Is just something that happened in 2020. What do you think that we need to do afterwards to continue this movement, to continue people to be engaged? How do we do that? What happens after this is done?
well, let's not wait until after it's done. Let's do it from now. Let's start organizing now. Let's start putting more black organizations in our communities to actually fit the needs for the people. You know, let's start advocating for the funding. You know, go to my2020census.gov and fill out your census, you know, so that the billions of dollars that is owed to our communities actually come in so that way we're no longer undercounted. You know, so that way we have money for our parks and our schools and so forth. Let's make sure that if we feel that we don't like who they're giving to us as candidates, then we go to the people in our community and see if they want to run, so that way they then become our candidates, become
Right.
a representation for us. You know, let's invest in our communities. Let's invest in our small businesses. You know, even if we may not have that much money, let's start mentorship groups. Let's start education read-along groups for the youth, so that way we're now teaching them their history because the school system is not going to do it, you know, until we make a change in that. You know, so let's do everything from now. Let's empower the people from now, educate them from now, and let's guide them from now, so that way there's not no post. There is current and it stays current. Cause
I
that's the
agree.
only thing that's the only thing that's been lacking is the fact that a lot of people waited after. It's like, no, let's do this now. While we out here marching the chant, while we out here putting pressure on the system, let's enact our own system. Let's build from now
I agree. I totally agree, Anthony.
and
Man,
return back our black Wall Streets.
which we need. Which we need. We
Yes,
definitely need that.
because there is no Central Park in my eyes. That it is still Seneca Village.
Right. Right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh man, yo, Anthony, man, my brother, I appreciate you taking this time, out of your work to
Thank you for
come
having
on
me
on
in.
the podcast, man, and to speak to the people and just to bring them the message. And I thank you for being on the front line and continuously working for our people and empowering Black people, particularly, especially in our area of Flatbush. We need that. We need it more
Right.
now than ever.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all your good works, my brother. How can people get in contact with you? Where can they see your updates and things that you have going on? And just how can they reach you when they want to see you?
All right, so on Twitter, I am Vote for Beckford. That's VOTE, the number 4, BECKFORD, because one day I will get the city council seat. you know.
Absolutely.
Um, on Facebook and Instagram is Anthony Beckford, the number 4, city council. Council is COUNCIL. You know, most of the times, if they live in our communities in Flatbush, you're gonna see me in the streets. You're either
Right.
gonna see my cop watch jacket, or you're gonna see my Black Lives Matter jacket, or you're just gonna see me out there, running up on the cop who's trying to abuse somebody in our communities and let them know I'm not gonna stand for it. If
Absolutely.
they need to really find me, they're gonna see me on the front lines of every issue that we got going on out here.
All right. That's perfect, bro. Continue.
Oh yeah, and my website is anthonybeckford.nationbuilder.com.
One more time, anthonybeckford.nationbuilder.com.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to make sure that you follow Anthony. Continue to support him and everybody that's on the front line, that's on the pavement, working for us and pretty much staying on the front line to make sure that they bring awareness to what's happening and not just talking about it but actually being about it. And we
Yeah.
thank you again, Anthony. You can always use my platform anytime. I'll have
I
you back
appreciate you,
again so
bro.
we can talk about when again, when all of this kind of dies down and the protests stop and then we're moving into the next level. I definitely want to have you back to continue talking about it and pushing these issues forward and making sure that we are aware and educated on what we can do as citizens. Thank you so much, my brother.
Definite, bro. Definite.
All right, man. So we'll talk soon, bro.
All right.
Yep, that was Anthony Beckford. I'm so sorry. We got a full screen of my face here. But that was Anthony Beckford, again, community advocate, a great brother. Went to high school with him, Midwood High School in Brooklyn, Flatbush, Brooklyn, right on the junction. And he's on the front lines working for us as a people, making sure that we are staying aware. And I want us all to stay cognizant as Black people on what's going on out there in the world, not just when these things happen, but just in general in our everyday lives. This was the Sonik Gemz podcast special edition. Again, thank you to Anthony. Thank you to the rest of the team. And we'll be back with hopefully another episode soon. And we're going to have Anthony back again so that we can continue this talk and continue the dialogue. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Sonik Gemz podcast.